Hi, my name is Steven and welcome back to my channel. And today I'm going to be talking to you about winter escapes, things that I like to do in the winter in Seattle. Washington State has a diverse range of activities in the wintertime. There's something for everyone, especially if you like being in the cold. If skiing and snowboarding is your jam, there's plenty of places to go in Washington. There's plenty of mountains in the area and beautiful scenery to boot. And those seeking a more tranquil experience, snowshoeing and hiking are still prominent in the area during the wintertime. And even if you don't like winter activities outside, there's plenty of indoor winter markets. Because the urban centers of Seattle comes alive, especially during the winter time when everybody's huddled inside. And also with the focus on indoor events, there's cultural and recreational events all around town. Winter in Seattle is quite special to me, especially for someone who grew up in LA. Winter in Seattle is special for me because I grew up in LA. There really wasn't a winter season at all, with no snow for miles around. Now in Seattle, I experience all 4 seasons every year. Even though the weather can be rough in these winter months, there's always something you can do. And now after the pandemic, indoor activities are back as well. So now there's a full combination of indoor and outdoor stuff to do in Seattle. So you can definitely have yourself a nice little wonderland in the Pacific Northwest. So let's explore what I love to do in Seattle during the winter. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about my background, my winter escapes, and my general thoughts. And before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, share with your friends, hit that notification bell if you like this content. And here we go. Transitioning to Seattle from LA growing up was rough for me. This was primarily due to the differences in the weather in those areas. Los Angeles basically didn't have a winter, it had summer and spring, and consequently I didn't have any snow touch the ground throughout my entire 23 years living there. But now in Seattle it rains mostly and occasionally snows up here. And coming from an intensely sunny climate, now it's dreary and rainy 6 months out of the year. But that doesn't mean I stay indoors. Plenty of times in Seattle during the winter I go outside and see what I can. There's not a lot of light during the day, so I try to catch that sun whenever possible. And I try to attend the holiday markets wherever I can find them around town. It's definitely the main draw outside when the days are really cold. And over time, I had to just get adjusted to the cold because there's no way to actively fight against it. Because unlike the heat of LA where you can't cool off, you can warm up by putting more clothes on. You can eventually get used to being comfortable in the winter. So winter has been an adaptation for me to get used to coming from LA. And there are definitely things that I've grown accustomed to now that I'm in Seattle. So here are some of the winter activities in Seattle that I love. Number 1, finding sun. In the Pacific Northwest, it's known for its dreary climate and gray skies all the time. Moments during the day when there are sunshine are precious. And it becomes for me a pursuit to find the warmest part of the day. When the sun comes out, I love to find a spot, sit there, and bask in its glow. Parks and waterfronts are the prime places that I sit and wait for the sun. But even if I can't get to one of those places, a brisk walk in the sun will do me good. As long as the sky's clear, I love to be out in the sun when I can. It makes me miss the sun that I had in abundance in LA. And it becomes a ritual during the winter months to find that best spot for the sun. I think the one thing that I miss the most is just being out in the sun during wintertime without a heavy jacket. That is my ideal state, to be in winter with a t-shirt on. But knowing where I live and the climate it has, I just have to settle for what sun I can get whenever I can. Even if it's just a few minutes in between cloud cover. And I think the hardest part for me is not being in a constant state of sunlight. Because in the winter months, there can be many days, possibly weeks without the sun being out. But I just have to be creative when that sun is out to catch the most of it. But for me, during the winter, this is one of my best activities that I like to do, go sun chasing. Number 2, snowboarding. In the cold months around Seattle, I love to go snowboarding whenever I can. There are many mountain passes within about 1 or 2 hours from Seattle. It's a relatively short drive outside of the city and you can find great slopes to ski in. And they also offer a diverse set of terrain for all skill sets. One of the best experiences I've ever had is going down a mountain next to trees with nobody around me. The air is cool and crisp and there's just silence around me. It takes me out of my urban and computer mindset all day long and puts me dab smack in the middle of nature itself. When I'm snowboarding by myself, I can truly be at ease. I don't go as often as I like, but whenever I do, I find friends that I can hang out with. It's usually only a day trip for me, but I get a lot of relaxation from the activity itself. And it's also a really intense workout for that 8 hours that I put into snowboarding. It's a great way for me to completely unwind from my day-to-day activities, to just be somewhere completely different. And that's something I cherish during the winter months of Seattle. Having the ability to just disconnect whenever I want to. So taking trips to the mountain to snowboard is one of my favorite Seattle activities. Number 3, winter hiking. Around Seattle are hundreds of trails out in the mountains and forests. Every trail is different and there's always something new to see out there. Whether it's lakes, mountains, or deep forests. There's something for everyone when you're on that hike. As long as you don't mind the cold, hiking in the wintertime can be a great way to get that exercise in and explore nature. For me, winter hiking and snowshoeing has been one of the best experiences about living here, because this was something that I definitely didn't get a lot of growing up in LA. In LA, there's urban sprawl everywhere and there's not a lot of nature hikes. But in Seattle, only an hour out, you can find yourself in the middle of nowhere. And some of the hikes that I've been on took me to truly beautiful and marvelous places. So in the wintertime when the air is chilly, I try to take advantage of it whenever I can. Not only is it good exercise, but it also clears the mind and the senses of everything around me. This is also another way for me to disconnect from my day-to-day life, because the natural environment engages all of your senses and you're not just focused on a sterile work environment. It's a welcome change to be out in nature in the wintertime, but I have to be mindful of the time, because there's only about 8 hours of light during the day in the wintertime, so I have to catch the light at its peak while hiking. So one of the best winter activities that I love to do in Seattle is to hike. And number 4, holiday markets and festivals. Seattle comes alive with festive energies, especially during the winter months, because holiday markets and festivals take center stage of all indoor activities in Seattle, with also a few sprinkles of outdoor holiday events. All around town, Seattle is transformed into a winter wonderland, with all the downtowns twinkling with Christmas lights everywhere. Locals and tourists alike love to attend all the holiday festivals and markets around Seattle during this time. And it's one of those really special times in which I can fully embrace the winter season. Being around a cold environment during the holidays is what I pictured life in the movies to be like. Because as a child, winter in LA when it's sunny outside and 80 degrees just isn't the same. It makes the holiday celebrations in Seattle just more realistic. My favorite holiday to attend to is Snowflake Lane in Bellevue Center. It goes for a month straight and it starts every day at 7 p.m. But the other holiday events around town is just as exciting. There are a bunch of vendor halls, food markets, and festival lights to see all around town. And during this time, there are so many events that happen back to back every single week. In our situation, we have to maximize this time to see everything that we possibly can. Now that we have a new child, we want to show him all the holiday events around town during this winter time. So definitely it's a new element of joy to have a new child experiencing holidays for the first time. So in the wintertime, I really look forward to all the winter activities in Seattle. So here are my general thoughts about winter activities in Seattle. Even though winter is a great time to explore all that Washington has to offer, it is also a time to rest. It's also a time to take a step back and recharge your batteries whenever you can. Whether it's social or work-wise, the Seattle weather does have its benefits, because being forced to stay indoors for long periods of time also helps you to rest and recover, and ultimately help people to slow down the chaos in their lives, giving us all a chance to rest and recuperate before spring comes around. Lastly, I always wanted to live in a place that has 4 seasons, and also a winter that actually has snow on the ground. But not too much snow that it stops traffic, but just enough to make it special. And Seattle is perfect for that. You never have a lot of snow for a long period of time. Although I do wish it was generally warmer and sunnier during the wintertime, I can't have it all. If I want warmer climates, then I have to just travel somewhere else during the wintertime. But overall, Seattle has been a wonderful place to experience winter activities. So those are some of the things that I look forward to in Seattle during the wintertime. Surviving the gloomy and wet days in Seattle can be tough, but you can overcome it. And in many cases, you'll just have to travel and get your sun elsewhere. Coming from LA, Seattle was definitely a huge change for me to adjust to. But I found many ways to take my mind off the cold, rainy, and dark days of Seattle. And in general, Seattle does have less things to do in the wintertime than in the summertime. But there are definitely pockets of wonderful winter activities that you just have to find and experience. And those events will show you just how special the Pacific Northwest in wintertime actually is. I certainly have seen some of the best that Seattle has to offer, especially during the wintertime, and that makes me more excited to stay here for the long term. So thank you for watching. Please leave me a comment down below on what are some of the winter activities that you like to do and why do you enjoy it? And I'll see you next time.